Force Recon is a mission primarily about seeing without being seen. Stop wasting my time! Get to the chopper!
Okay, so we need to talk about Force Recon. This is the new game mode that's coming out with the Global Mobilization CDLC 1.5 update, which is going to be a massive update in and of itself. And I really feel like 1.5 is the time to buy Global Mobilization, if you haven't already, because this game mode could be my new favorite mission in all of Arma. This game mode is focused on a West German or Western special reconnaissance team deploying behind enemy lines to gather intel, track troop movements, and sabotage enemy bases to disrupt the Soviet powers in the area. I find Force Recon to be so unique because it's focused on the stealth and intel gathering aspects of Arma, which are super underrepresented in the game. So some of the cool features for this game mode are that there are two ways to win. You can win by intel gathering or by sabotage. The intel gathering system relies on map markers, which is kind of a super intuitive system that I would have never thought of, but really works. When you see an enemy, you simply double click on the map where you think they are and set down a marker. And if you marked close enough, it will call out the enemy position on the map. There's a little delay on placing the markers that you can see here, so you can't just spam them, but of course you can turn that off if you want to be a big fat cheater. After marking, you then have to radio in the coordinates to HQ to actually earn the intel points, which exposes your position to the enemy, who will then mortar, shoot at, or rush your position. So it's important to displace right after calling in the enemy positions. What's super interesting is if you kill the enemy patrols or get spotted, it actually deducts intel points, so be careful and make sure you're working stealthily. Now there's also this working in-game camera that gives extra intel points if you take photos of enemy positions, which makes you feel like an actual spy, and seeing the points pop up on the screen is kind of satisfying in like a gambling way. I don't know, I really liked it. And then if you mark a sabotage point, it will create a new objective that's worth a ton of intel points. And these are going to be things like caches or trains loaded with important equipment and headquarters. After you spot them, you can then go and blow up those objectives to earn sabotage points, which are a different way to win, but are a little bit fewer points that you need, but at a greater risk because you have to actually go there and blow them up. Blowing up other important vehicles, like if you can find a Scud or if you can find a Shilka, that's also going to give you a lot of sabotage points. Now, once you've acquired either enough intel or sabotage points, then you have to exfiltrate the enemy territory, get back to friendly territory, and you win. Now, I'm a little bit iffy on exactly where the exfil location is, but this should be on the shorelines or near DMZs on any of the major maps. Now, once you've won the mission or died in a horrible death, there's a cool little outro that shows exactly where your team moved throughout the map during your entire playthrough and what enemies you reported. I was blown away the first time I saw this because it's just so cool to get basically an instant AAR right after the mission was done. So I thought that was pretty cool, and the whole thing is just really immersive and feels like you're actually a special operator working behind enemy lines to report enemy troops. I just think it's so cool. Another awesome thing about this scenario is that it's built from the ground up to be customizable. There's a ton of options in the mission parameters right from the very get-go that allow you to customize your experience, including unlocking full arsenals and changing the enemies to other factions, meaning that you could actually do like a modern or a 2035 setting for this game mode right out of the box. Just select a full arsenal, bring some modern stuff, and then set the enemies to a 2035 FIA or something like that. Now there's also instructions on the official wiki page for how to port Force Recon into other maps and also how to add in new factions, which is really cool. You can basically add this into any map that you want, and I plan on doing this sometime soon. So if you're interested in seeing how to do that, definitely let me know down in the comments, and I'll make sure to put a video together on that. One thing to consider though is no matter what you do, all of the ports are going to require global mobilization because of certain feature modules that come only with the CDLC. So do keep that in mind. Now there's a lot that I love about this particular game mode. I think the map marking system is really cool and very immersive, such a great use of an Arma system. And because of the setting and the fact that you have to be very specific on the map, it actually forces you and your team to do a lot of land navigation and terrain association, so you can figure out exactly where you're at and where the enemy is from your location, which just adds to the difficulty and fun of the scenario. I also love the fact that the enemies triangulate your position when you call in on the radio and send attacks or even just shoot right at your position. It really ramps up the intensity, especially when you're in a tight spot with a lot of different enemies around, and you find that you need to balance whether you want to call in right now or you want to wait till later where that call in will be worth fewer points because the enemies have moved from their current positions. In general, I just find that this scenario is super unique. I've never played anything else in Arma like it. You can play the entire operation without firing a single shot if you're stealthy enough, and there's not many that you see like that. Also, having a focus on good tactics, movement, and route planning is really fun, especially for a certain type of gamer who isn't necessarily as interested in huge explosions and giant company-on-company combat. Truly, there's no other game other than Arma that could pull off a game mode like this, so it's just really cool to see the devs take advantage of so many of the Arma systems and bring them together to make such an enjoyable experience. So small team missions with a lot of replayability like dynamic recon ops are basically my favorite type of Arma scenario, and this one is infinitely replayable because of how many points there are on the map, how big the maps are, and how you exactly want to take it down. And obviously you can then customize it and come back and do it again. So there's hours and hours and hours to play for this one, and I think that's really, really neat. And lastly, the alternating moments of calm where you're just walking through the woods with your friends, keeping your eye out, but generally in a safe spot, to suddenly having terror as you have to hide from an enemy patrol within 10 feet of you, makes this mode so satisfying, especially when you're able to just barely slip past those enemies. And it's going to have you and your unit telling stories from this for years to come. Now, like anything else, there's some things that I think they need to improve or fix still. The biggest issue that I found is that on some terrain, it just doesn't work well for certain objectives that were placed down, leading to strange situations like this SCP bunker that no man can get in or out of that we ended up right next to. I would have loved to have blown that up, but we couldn't even get to the entrance because it was in the side of the hill. Part of that is just going to be good placement on the map, but also I feel like there's some adjustments they can make to figure out what the terrain is and modify the setup a little bit. The other big issue for my group at least, is that if you use Ace, it will break the game mode, like many of the official game modes. And that's really unfortunate because some of the features of Ace, like Ace pointing, are actually super helpful for this mode. I used pointing a ton when I was trying to get my buddy who had the camera to be able to take pictures of the enemies I had just spotted. It's a lot harder to call out and have them try to, describe to exactly where they're at. If they could find a way to get Ace to work with this, it would be so much better. Another issue we ran into is that the respawn system seems to be broken at this point. Now, this is something you have to select in parameters. It's not there originally, but we did do a run through where we had selected the respawn to respawn us back at base after we all died rather than failing the mission, but we still failed immediately. So they just need to get on that and fix that before 1.5 release. And my last biggest gripe is that the cities are pretty desolate. There's not really much going on. We walked all the way through Cherno and barely saw a couple guys. I would love to see some civilians that report you if they see you, or maybe a bigger military presence in the larger cities like Cherno, because it's kind of immersion breaking and it would be so much more enjoyable if you could really, like a spy, have to move block to block inside a city infested with enemies, or make the decision to watch from the outside where maybe you can't see as much. I think that that would be a really neat thing to be able to do, and they just need to beef up what's going on in the cities instead. Now, the empty Cherno could just be an aspect of the fact that we played on Chernaris. I haven't done a full playthrough on any other maps, so the other ones might be better, but this one was a little bit of a letdown. So if you're interested in Force Recon mode and you want to see more about it, I did actually do 2 full playthroughs that are in the video on the top right. So if you want to see more, go ahead and click that video and you'll be able to see it. I also want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon and YouTube channel members for all the support you've given me. If you watched this and you enjoyed it and want to help me be able to make more of these videos, consider joining the Special Ops division here on YouTube with the link down below, where you'll get exclusive looks behind the scenes and even some special slots for our operations. With that though, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy it. UselessFodder, out.
No.